Hello, everybody. Gigi, do you just want to record it and then upload to the drive after?
Sure. It says it's already recording.
Yeah, I know. I just didn't know if you wanted me to do the recording or not, whatnot. It'll just convert afterwards and then just upload it to the Google Drive and text Lauren and she'll upload it to the website.
Okay, sounds good.
Hi, Anusha.
Hello. Haven't seen you in like a week. It's been crazy.
Yeah, I know. How are you feeling?
Good. I've tested negative a bunch of times, so I will
Okay.
be showing up tomorrow.
Okay, that's good. Apparently, she's supposed to post the slides from our guest speaker yesterday, so you should still be able to do the reflection.
She told me that's how. She was like, "Oh, just do the reflection, but I'll post the slides," and she hasn't yet. So
I know. I keep checking because I'm not
I'm
doing
like,
it.
"Hello." I know. And then our 4 o'clock professor, she was like, "Please don't come," and I was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "Please do not show up to class," and I was like, "All right."
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I kind of hope tomorrow's a short class though, because we did not get out early on Tuesday in 400. Hey y'all, we're just gonna let people keep trickling in and we're waiting for the guest speaker to show up. But once it gets to 5:30, I have one quick announcement for everyone. I'll just wait for some more people to trickle in before I say it. And then I'll turn things over. Oh, I don't like awkward silence. So has anyone done anything fun this past 2 weeks? Anybody? Anyone doing something fun this weekend?
No, not really. I mean, just go out sometimes, but not that much.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah,
going
so I
home.
wasn't here. I wasn't here last meeting. That's my fault. I was at work.
You're fine. Well, I'm going home this weekend for an engagement party. So I'm
Ooh,
excited for that.
that's
Yeah.
fun. Where's that at?
Scottsdale.
Oh.
It's for my cousin. My family's actually hosting it. So
Mhm. Who is it for? Is it for your cousin or?
yeah, it's for my cousin. She got engaged like 6 months ago, I think.
Ooh, that's fun. And that's all this weekend, or?
Uh-huh.
Oh, nice. It's not the actual wedding. It's just a party.
No, just the engagement party.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
They have a lot of nice places out in Scottsdale.
Yeah, we're just doing it at my house though.
Oh, okay. Oh, are you from Scottsdale?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Hello, Claire.
Hello, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
By email.
How's everybody doing?
Good. We're just gonna give it till 5:30. Some people do tend to trickle in the few minutes after.
That's understandable.
And then I just have one quick announcement for the club, and then I'll turn everything over to you.
Sure.
Okay, well, it's just about 5:30, so I'll go ahead and do it. This announcement is for seniors. If you are graduating this year and you would like a senior stole, I'm putting a link in the chat. I will also send it out in the recap email after this meeting. I need to know if you guys want a senior stole. Currently, I have no winter graduates stating that they want a senior stole. If that is the case, I will not be ordering any. So especially if you are a winter graduate, please, please, please fill out this form if you would like a stole from PPAH. Otherwise, you will not be getting one. That's my only announcement. So I guess I'll turn it over to our guest speaker for today.
Well, hi, everybody. It's good to see you. So you're all thinking about the PA profession, is that right? Okay, very cool, very cool. Well, my name is Kevin Lohenry. I'm the brand new, as of February, director of the brand new physician assistant program at the University of Arizona. So very excited to be down in Tucson. I've spent the last 11 years at USC out in Los Angeles, and just loved being there. It was a great program, really had a great team there. But my wife and I honeymooned in Tucson 28 years ago. And we fell in love with Tucson, and her mom comes down here for the winters, and it was just too good to pass up. And prior to being at USC, I was the director of Midwestern University's PA school in Glendale, Arizona from 2005 to 2011. And I used to always say to preceptors, that were training our students, I'd say, would you consider training our students? And they'd always say, well, until U of A starts a PA school, I will. But once U of A starts a PA school, all bets are off. So I always remembered that, like the reputation of U of A's medical school and institution as a whole, there's a strong hometown state flavor for this school. And so I thought it would be really interesting to look into it. And when I came down and interviewed a year ago in July, I was really blown away from the university's commitment to the program and the resources that we're going to have and the facilities that we have. I don't know if any of you have seen the Health Science Innovation Building yet. My gosh, it's just amazing. And I came from a pretty wealthy private school at USC, and the facilities here are as good or better. So that was kind of one thing that sold me. Dr. Robbins being a cardiothoracic surgeon, and Dr. Dake, who's the senior vice president for health sciences, who's also a cardiothoracic surgeon. The two of them have a strong commitment to build a great program. And this will be my third director gig, and I really want to I'm not interested in starting programs that are under-resourced and don't have a good vision for support from the university. And it's clear that this university is very excited to start the program. So I'm really excited to tell you about what we're kind of envisioning, and our timeline, which is going to be okay for some of you, maybe if you're freshmen. If you're seniors or juniors, it would be my privilege to help you get into other PA schools, but we're just not going to be ready because of accreditation. It's going to take about 3 years before we have a class sitting. So our accrediting body for the PA profession has it's like being an air traffic controller. There's like 100 planes sitting out in the skies trying to land, and each one of them has to go through accreditation before they can recruit a class. And so we are going to need to wait for all that traffic to land before they'll consider our program. So in the meantime, we're trying to build partnerships in the state of Arizona for clinical training sites. And I continue to build the curriculum, and we're just about to advertise to hire our leadership team for the program. And then in a year, we'll probably start hiring more of our faculty for the program and kind of go from there. So the program's, what we intended to be is a 26-month program with the first summer off. So it's going to look and feel a little bit like USC, because I was at USC for so long, and I had a chance to really look at what worked for that program, which was a 33-month program. And what things did students, when they graduate, consistently give me feedback on that were challenging for them. And I also looked at several of my favorite programs around the country as I built this curriculum for the president. And so, a lot of this is going to incorporate a lot of that data from student feedback, graduate feedback, and then also my colleagues at some of the top programs in the country. And hopefully that will help us build a really thoughtful program that students really enjoy, There are no perfect programs, but we intend to do a great job preparing students to be outstanding PAs in our communities. So it's going to have 3 semesters of didactic education. There'll be a fall semester 1, a spring semester 2, and a fall semester 3, and then a year of rotations. And then students will graduate tentatively in December or December, the December graduation, probably the winter graduation after that 26-month period. But they'll have that first summer off in between the spring and the fall. And very few schools have that. And I'll tell you, the feedback from our graduates at USC is generally for their wellness and mental health. They love that. And many of the students use that opportunity to kind of refresh their wellness tank, but also they went out to do medical mission work, and they traveled to other countries to help communities that were in need. And they some students went back to work just to try to also refresh that bank account in addition to their wellness tank. And USC is incredibly expensive, as I'm sure you know. So that was, part of it was a chance to kind of try to catch up a little bit from all the expenses of PA school. The program is going to have 20 semester credit hours per semester. It's a heavy load, but PA schools generally, that's about the usual. It'll be 107 credit hours total, which, the faculty at U of A, when they looked at this, they're like, that's a doctorate program at U of A. And I said, I know, but that the mean number of credit hours at PA schools around the United States is around 107, 108. So until the profession takes on an entry-level doctorate as the degree of choice, that's kind of where we're at. And then if they do take on that doctorate, we'll kick it back to the faculty senate and say, you told us this was a doctoral level program, so our hope is to make it a doctoral level program without adding any extra time. So that would be our hope for the program. And I honestly, I don't know when that's going to happen, but the drum has been beating for a couple of years. So I'm happy to take questions about that later if you'd like. The program is going to focus on rural and indigenous health and serving underserved communities with a heavy emphasis on behavioral medicine. And the reason I want that to occur is because that's where the needs of our communities are in rural Arizona. And frankly, even in Tucson, right? The mental health, addiction issues, psychiatric challenges for our community. Obviously, everything going on, the social unrest in our world these days, there is a strong evidence base that mental health plays a part in that. And that's from historic racism in our systems. That's from people that are not being treated in an early fashion. It's from a lack of access to good quality healthcare. And we want to empower our PA graduates to be able to provide the necessary care for communities, regardless of the setting that you end up in. So that'll be the big focus. We hope to partner with rural communities and with the indigenous nations here in Arizona to build pathways to and from. But we also still need here a bunch of PAs in Southern Arizona. And there's a real lack of community among the PAs here in that process to help our PAs feel like they have somebody that's cheering them on, advocating for laws to change at the state level, providing continuing education courses for them, and giving them an opportunity to be involved in teaching the next generation of PAs. So that's the program. We're going to have an elective rotation and then required rotations like everybody else: family medicine, pediatrics, women's health, surgery, emergency medicine, behavioral medicine. And I always forget one. There's always one that's on the list that I can't remember. I'm getting old and it's not quite as quick, but it'll be a really exciting program with great resources, and looking forward to recruiting really amazing faculty. I've already had in the community that are starting to go get their doctorates so they can become more qualified candidates, which is really, there's an PA community that I've seen when we recruit everybody. So Claire, do you want me to stop and take questions about the program, or do you want me to talk a little bit about my journey to becoming a PA? I see you nodding your head. So yes, do the journey or stop and
Sorry.
take questions.
My Zoom glitched for a second. What was the question?
Would you like me to stop and take questions about the program, or do you want me to continue and talk about my journey?
Whatever you want to do. This is completely your time.
Oh, wow. Well, I'd love to talk about the Chicago Bears. Can we do that? Anybody here from
Sure.
Illinois? Probably not. Oh, Abby,
I am.
I am too.
Katie, and oh my God, we got 3. That's awesome. Sydney too. Very good. It's going to get chilly up there soon in Chicago. And you can hear me just fine. I'm not glitching on my end, am I? I live up I'm a little out in the rural area here in near Catalina Highway, so my internet can be a little questionable sometimes.
My Zoom's been glitching a little bit, but I don't know if it's on my end or yours.
Okay, I haven't gotten any notice saying, that terrible thing that says your internet is sketchy. I haven't gotten that yet. So, okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about my background. So I'm kind of a traditional PA. I was a Navy corpsman. And when I say traditional, I mean an old school PA. Right now is 38. 75% are women, the rest are men, or other non-binary, other genders. And we are, back in the day when I went to PA school, it was 1994. I just got out of the military and went to PA school, and they actually just started offering a bachelor's degree at my program. And then a couple years later, they started offering the master's. So I'm a bachelor's trained PA graduate. And I went back to get my master's and back to go get my doctorate as well. But that was kind of in life, as I knew I wanted to get into education. I knew I had to get higher degrees. So I started practicing in Wheaton, Illinois, which is a suburb in the western suburbs of Chicago. It's about 30 miles west of Chicago, and it was my hometown. So it was really interesting to start practicing in my hometown and seeing my friends from high school's parents and grandparents, and taking care of my friends' kids and all these things for them, for those that ended up back in Wheaton. And I would round in the hospital. Typically at 6 a.m. I was at the hospital seeing patients that have been admitted the night before. And I would do all of their, what we call a history and physical, which is essentially, it's kind of like if you were checking into a hotel, but they did a very thorough history of you before you could go to your room. The history and physical medicine is a chance for us to get to know you and understand all of your health needs and why you came into the ER for that issue, so that we're not surprised by something when they're up on the floor. If we just focus on what they're there for, we might forget that they have diabetes and they have a super high blood sugar or something. So you have to do a very thorough history and physical for every patient you admit. And that was my role. I used to take care of those for our physician team. And then I would round on all the patients that were in the hospital. Typically my boss, my supervising physician at the time, would have a census of about 4 to 10 patients in the hospital. So I would go round on all those patients, check in on them, make sure I couldn't find their lab tests, their chest x-ray results, any notes from our consultants that we had asked for. And I would write all the orders for those patients to get them tucked away for the day before I headed over to the office to see about 20 patients at our internal medicine practice as an outpatient provider. Nowadays, a lot of hospitals use hospitalists, so that model of care is a little bit outdated. Interestingly, there are some people moving back into that because there's been some data to suggest that there's a lack of continuity of care when you're trusting new hospitalists to kind of take care of a patient they don't know that well. And in that period of time they're in the hospital, some of the outcomes are suggesting that maybe there would be some benefit to them having their regular provider take care of them. So it's going to be interesting how the hospitalist movement changes in the course of the next 5 to 10 years. I also did long-term care facility rotation. So I would see our patients who were in retirement homes, usually once every 60 days on my weekend call. I took call one weekend every month. And so what that meant is on Friday at 4 o'clock, I get the pager. I'm paged by the service all weekend long until 8:30 on Monday morning. And I would go see the patients in the hospital, not only from our team, my physician and I, that, the patients we had admitted, but also all the other providers in our practice. So our census went from like 5 to 10 patients, typically to closer to 20 to 30 patients. So it's a very busy weekend when you're on call for a health system. And then, of course, you still have admissions, new admissions all weekend long. So instead of having like 4 admissions for just our group, we had like, on average 10 or 12. So you're constantly discharging patients, but you're also constantly admitting them and kind of hoping that you can get home for dinner each night on the weekend. So I did that for about 11 years. And I was also a preceptor. I started taking students into our practice from my alma mater, Midwestern University in Illinois. And I really love teaching students. And I started to realize that I love teaching just as much as I love taking care of patients. And yet the hours were much better for my at the time young kids that were growing up. And so I decided to shift to full-time teaching and part-time practice, which I did for about 4 years in Illinois. And then I became the director of the school at Midwestern University in Glendale, and then USC, as I shared with you earlier. So I've been a PA for about 26 years now. I've also I'm a past president for the National Education Association for PAs. And I also served on the board of directors for the National Commission on Certification of PAs, which is the national certifying body for PAs. And obviously, one of the things you want to look at as a pre-PA is the school that you're looking at. What is their success rate at having their graduates pass the examination on their first time? It's a 300 question exam. It's high stakes because you cannot get a license in the United States without passing that exam. And so there's a lot of anxiety in PA school to get ready for that test. And when students graduate, they typically spend about a month preparing for the exam before they take it, kind of like maybe your colleagues who take the bar exam that go to law school or take the other major exams for their professions. But truthfully, most schools pretty good pass rate. 94, 95%. That's the national average. So it's attempts. So there's ample opportunity for you to be successful, even if you have really bad test anxiety and struggle that first time. And the pass rate the second time is even higher. So, it's not the worst thing in the world. I've had plenty of students who didn't pass that first time. You are at the states, because medicine and the laws are changing for PA. So there's a movement by our national academy to not only increase autonomy for PAs to practice. It's a thing called optimal team practice. It's a change for the profession recently. I'm cutting out a bit.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me, but you're cutting out on our end.
Oh, now it's got the internet connection. Change now. Up.
Okay, well, we'll hope he comes back in. Yeah, I'm just south of campus right now, and it's hitting over here too. You know, Jana, I literally had the thought this weekend to go get my car washed, and I was like, no, let's not do that. Oh, Melly, that's unfortunate. I'm keeping my eye on my email in case he sends me an email, but I'll hope he is able to get back in. Melly, I believe, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he said in about 3 years is when they're going to be ready to start seating their first class. Olivia, that'd be a good question to ask him. I don't know. My guess is as of right now, probably not, only because they haven't hired faculty yet. That'd be a good question to ask him.
If there are any PA schools or specialties that you guys are interested in learning more about, you can also put that in the chat too, and we can look into it and do that in one of the upcoming meetings.
Please do. I try and pick different schools that I think people might not have heard about, but I'd rather do schools that people are actually interested in learning more about. So, yeah, go ahead, and that's a good point. Just drop them in the chat. Oh, okay. Lauren, USC was one of my tops until I realized I had to take Spanish and I took French.
Do
That's
some
literally why
PA
I'm in Spanish.
I did not know that some schools require a certain language instead of another. Is
I
that
haven't
common
seen-
across the board?
I haven't seen many that do. USC is in a largely Hispanic area. And so a lot of times, especially when you're working in practices, you'll be talking to like Spanish speaking residents who might not speak English. And so they like you to have some basic knowledge of Spanish. Didn't realize that until after I'd already finished my language component.
What schools are you looking at applying to, Claire?
I was actually just working on updating my list today. I have Emory, Stanford's my top, George Washington for dual degree, because I also kind of want to get my master's in public health. UC Davis, South University. I think I took everything else off. So I'm looking through right now to find some other ones. I have not heard of some of these schools before. I'm very interested now.
I know that some of the schools, some of the PA universities, they offer doctorates programs where you can do like the your PhD as you're doing your MA. I know that the one that's in Oregon, they offer a semester in addition to your 2-3 year PA degree. So if you guys want to do also the PhD all in one go, that's an option.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's becoming a lot more popular, I'm noticing.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Welcome back.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened.
You're okay.
I interrupted though. Please go ahead, whatever you're talking about.
I should say I've been finding it's been becoming more common for PA schools to do dual degree programs, whether it's a master's in another like field, like public health, especially, or one of the members was just talking about PhD alongside PA.
Yeah, that's a big chunk to take on. But definitely, I think that the doctor of medical science is starting to show up in a lot more places. I know Northeastern University just started one. I just interviewed the guy who started the DMSC at University of Lynchburg last week. He'll be on our podcast coming up in the next few weeks. And it is interesting to see how quickly that's kind of spreading. So, well, what I kind of gave you my spiel, I think. What questions do you have for me?
Someone had a question in the chat asking if there would be an early acceptance into this program. Have you thought about that as being an option, or like what would that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I hadn't honestly thought about it because I'm really focused on just trying to get to that first stage of accreditation. I think the accrediting body is a little tricky in our profession, and they don't like things that are different. They like you to be very consistent with other programs. And so, we have a friend of mine is our consultant. He's a recent commissioner from the accrediting body. And his advice has been is to kind of stay as normal as possible to start. And then once you get your accreditation, then you can start to bounce off into some other options. So Claire, like you mentioned, the dual degree, one of the things we definitely want to do is develop some dual degree options for dentistry or for pharmacy and potentially other things like public health. I know I just spoke to a colleague of mine. They're doing a new medical informatics at their institution. So that's a possibility down the road for us, things like that. The other thing I totally failed to mention to you is that we are going to have Spanish be a requirement to get into the PA school, a 1 year of college Spanish. And then we're going to teach in collaboration with the Spanish linguist department here at U of A. We're going to teach a medical Spanish curriculum for the first 3 semesters. At USC, we did that, and students doubled their competence in Spanish, typically from about 35 on a scale of 100 to about 70 during their time in the program. And many of those graduates went on to become fluent in medical Spanish and probably pretty comfortable in regular Spanish. So that'll be, there are plenty of programs that have a option for Spanish. There's only a couple that require Spanish as part of the curriculum. So we'll be one of those. Other questions I can answer for you?
I had a quick question. Have you thought about like the class size of the PA school yet?
Yeah, we have. So we are planning on a class size of 50. I'd love to start out with 30 or 40, but the accrediting body also makes that challenging. So we'll probably just go to 50 and hang out at 50 for a while. Plus our tuition will be similar to Northern Arizona University. As a state school, we'll have one of the least expensive programs in the nation. 50 is close to the standard. The average class size, I think, is 46 or 48 right now. So it's kind of right there. I've had as high as 90 at Midwestern University. Honestly, I don't like that. It's way too many. And I've been down as low as 40. I had 60 at USC before I left, and that's a great number. My gauge of how we can do with that is how well do I get to know the students, and I know every graduate from that program really well. So I think 60 or less is probably pretty good. Let's see, patient care hours done before applying. I don't know that we're going to have a minimum for that, because I think patient care hours are a bit of a gamble, right? It's hard to get in unless you become an EMT. At SC, we didn't have a minimum number, and I kind of based our admissions process off of USC and a little bit off of NAU. But I do think that you have to be able to demonstrate that you understand the role of a PA. And one of the best ways to do that is to have clinical experience. So USC didn't have a minimum, but the average hours for the grads most recently were around 4,000, which is about 2 years full-time practice and something before you get into PA school. Let's see, IB, AP, or concurrent credit count for required courses. What is IB?
It's International Baccalaureate Program.
Oh, okay, yes. The International Baccalaureate Program classes probably will count. And certainly AP credits might count. I have to look at that. That's a good question, Camilla. I'm not sure. But we will not have the GRE. So you will not be required to take the GRE for our program. And if you're a native speaker, how does this requirement work? So the best thing I would suggest, Kimberly, is you can actually test out and kind of CLEP out from college Spanish for that. And so you can get a test to prove that you're competent to Spanish 201 or 301 or 401, and then you'd be fine. How many of you are like in that stage where you're already starting to apply to programs? Anybody yet? Rebecca is, okay. Nobody else? And those of you who don't have your camera on, if you want to just raise your hand in the group, that's great. Just to get a sense of that, or you can put it in the chat box.
I'll be taking a gap year too, personally.
Good, that's smart. That's really smart. The average age of PA students is 26. So that's because of those healthcare hours, but also it's hard to get into PA school right off the bat. There's a life experience component to that just brings a level of polish to your interview process after you've been out for a year or two. I have had students as young as 19 get into PA school. I had a grad from BYU who finished her undergrad in 2 years. And she was kind of like our version of Doogie Howser, for if you know that reference. I'm aging myself, but and she's a family practice PA in the Salt Lake City area. Just was an amazing grad, but obviously that's the exception to the rule. So current sophomores, I'm hoping that we will be recruiting our first class for the fall of 2025, which means that we would have the interview process started in the fall of 2024. That may be a reach, but I'm certainly hope so. And I'll know more probably by early spring. So right now the program is going through higher learning accreditation process that will involve a site visit in January. The university, because we're a program that is separately accredited by a professional accrediting body, the HLC wants to do a site visit to make sure that the university is prepared to support this type of a program. So we can't even apply to the accrediting body for the PA profession until we've received that HLC approval for the degree. We'll be offering a master's of physician assistant practice for this program. And so we're kind of waiting on the HLC visit in late January. My hope is that we'll learn about the results in about 3 to 4 weeks after that, and then we'll be able to apply to the ARC. And once they receive our check and our intent to apply, they'll give us the date that will be considered by them, and then we can kind of start to backtrack and publish things on our website as to our start date. So all right, so let's see, I'm going to catch up on some questions. My brother will be starting PA school around age 25. He's been out of undergrad for about 2 years. That's pretty consistent. That's good. In your opinion, what's the best way to get patient care experience? I think there's no best way. I will say I have a bias I'm going to put out there. I think patient scribing is an amazing way to prepare for PA school. However, there are a lot of PA schools that don't think patient scribing is direct patient care. I personally think they're crazy. And if I were in charge of the PA world again, I would make sure that that was eradicated, but I'm not. My colleague, Lisa Mustone Alexander, she was at GW for many years. She's now the director of the Irish PA school in Dublin, Ireland. She did a study on that, and she was able to prove that PA students who were scribes were better prepared for PA school. But for whatever reason, some of my colleagues around the country still think it's not the same. So being an EMT, a patient care technician in a hospital or a practice, being a back office medical assistant that actually does, vital signs, blood draws, assists in minor surgeries in the office, things like that. Being a patient care tech in a major hospital, a paramedic, a nurse, all those are kind of classic. I was a pharmacy tech for a few years in the Navy, but I was also a paramedic in the Navy. So that was helpful. But I see pharmacy techs all the time, and they do great in pharmacology. But sometimes they need a little bit more direct patient care to get over the hump with some PA schools. So medical assistant for an NP, that's great. That's fantastic. That should work fine. Scholarships, I certainly hope so. So will the program offer scholarships to incoming students? I certainly hope so. One of the challenges of being a brand new program is it is difficult to qualify for some of the federal grants until you're fully accredited. And I've had really good success as a program director in getting the scholarship for disadvantaged students at USC, which offered up to $30,000 a year for students. We will be participating in the rural health program here in Arizona, which once we're part of that, right now that provides $4,000 scholarships to every student. And in return, students do some rural experiential training. And our rotations are going to be both in rural and urban settings anyways. So there will be some smaller scholarships available, but the big ones like, a $30,000 scholarship may not be available for the first 3 to 4 years while we wait for the federal cycle to rotate. Didactic court, let's see, I think CNA would qualify. Yes, CNA would qualify as patient care hours. AMT also would. Those are all excellent ways to do it. Will didactic courses be together with current medical students? Unfortunately, the medical school, we looked at that, and their ability to take courses concurrently with PA students is limited by class space, particularly the anatomy lab. So we will not be taking classes concurrently with them, but we will be looking for interprofessional activities to do with them throughout, including community service activities, possibly some simulation and standardized patient experiences with the medical school. And my hope is they learn to love us over time. And we find ways to expand the anatomy lab and other classrooms so that we can do more with them. All right, we talked about NP. I love being an MA. That's cool. I did too. I did that when I got out of the Navy. Before I went into PA school, I worked as an MA for a family practice for about 18 months. And it was a great experience, really, really excellent. If I reply another year, do I have to get brand new letters of rec? Yes, you do. So it's always good to prepare your letter of reference people to that possibility, and that way they can kind of hang on to their letter that they used the year before, and they could update it and resubmit it with the new CASPA package. CASPA is the centralized application service for PAs. It's a national database that PA schools participate in, and you do one main application, the CASPA application, and it automatically goes to all the schools that you check off on that application box. And then many of those schools will have supplemental applications that you do, which is really your opportunity to personalize your application to that school's mission. So that's another thing that we'll be having as well, so that we can evaluate applicants to see if they really align with our mission, vision, values as a program. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. You're in a psych PCP office. Yes, always interesting. I agree. It's a great need for healthcare providers. As a internal medicine PA, I saw a lot of psych patients, and patients with mental health challenges is probably the better way to say that. Which, welcome to the world. That's many of us. Life gets in the way sometimes, and we struggle, and there's nothing wrong with it. And let me just say, me as an advocate for patients, we have to get, well, I think your generation already does this really well. I'm generalizing to you, but my generation and the people older than me tend to still have this negative stigma about mental health challenges. I'm sorry, but if you look around the world these days, how can you not? It's such a tough world to be in right now, and all the things that have been going on, it makes it really hard to function. And we need to be better in tune with our wellness and our daily walk with our own mental health, so that we can be successful in life. So, so if you are in that realm, like many of us are, welcome to the club. It's just part of the deal. And I think the more of us as healthcare providers that are in tune to that, the better we can advocate for our patients. More of a question for me about the Navy, but do you know people that have applied to PA school and joined the military to help them pay for school? I do. Actually, I know quite a few. It's a great way to do it. I'm totally biased because I loved my military experience, minus about 100 days in combat, which was very scary, but the rest of it was super fun. I flew in helicopters and jumped out of helicopters to rescue people, and I rappelled out of helicopters to go down on mountains to rescue people. So if you like adrenaline, the military is pretty fun. I just spent the last 3 days at the NCCPA headquarters for a workshop. I was invited to be a panelist for the workshop there for a bunch of new PA educators, and sitting next to me was a Army PA that's been in the Army for 30 years. 20 of those were as a PA. And he talked about the benefits of being an Army PA. And one of them is they invest in your training. I mean, he's been through every possible course you can imagine around trauma, around aviation medicine, and all these other things. So they really, if you want to do a military career, it's a great way to do it. Typically, the Air National Guard and the Army has some money for PAs. And then on a sporadic basis, you'll see scholarships from the Air Force and the Navy. So, thanks, Janet, and thanks for your service too. Yeah, it was a great experience. I spent 7 years in the Navy, so not a bad way to go. And the GI Bill helped pay for my PA school, which was really nice. But back then it was only $15,000 a year. I'm really sorry. It's not fair, but it's just inflation. Okay, let's get on here. Will there be COVID immunization requirements? That's a great question. Caitlin, I don't know what the university's perspective is on that, but here's the challenge we have. As healthcare providers and as healthcare trainees, health systems are demanding that we have vaccinations. And so it's hard for our students to finish their training if they're not fully vaccinated for not just COVID, but also for all the usual vaccines. It makes it a little challenging to help people graduate on time. It's not completely impossible, because I have some students who have health reasons why they've not been able to get vaccinated. But it does make it incredibly challenging. It does put on that potential for delay. And then when you're practicing, if you work for a health system, it just creates more challenge for you. But it may be that by the time our school is up and running, COVID is under, is kind of an old hat thing. And so we have good control and sense of what it is. And at this point, I think the Tucson area, 85% of the Tucson community is vaccinated. So we're kind of, near that herd immunity possibility, which then I think changes things a little bit too, scientifically at least. Hopefully that answered your question. In terms of letters of recommendation, great question. So CASPA, at least as of last year, CASPA allows you to upload 5 letters of reference. And so I think it's really helpful to have a letter from a professor that you know well, somebody that can speak to your grit, your determination, your success in their challenging course, your level of commitment, those kind of things. Because if you think about it, the people that are going to be reviewing your application are all faculty. And for selfish reasons, we don't want to have students come in our program that are going to give us a big hassle, right? So if you have a professor speaking up or saying you're a great student to have in the class, that's like a checkbox for us saying, all right, they should be okay. They won't be giving us trouble for 26 months. So that's one thing. But probably more importantly, having people, if you can find PAs to speak up on your behalf, that means somebody in my profession and my community and my culture is vouching for you. That's excellent. So probably, this pre-PA club is a great way to do that. As you have guests who come in or practicing, it's, those are opportunities to get to know them. Maybe, ask if you can grab a cup of coffee with them someday and pick their brains some more. And that might lead to an opportunity to shadow them. And then that might lead an opportunity. You might find that's one of those PAs is doing a bunch of community service and would really like to have some help. I know Lisa Ritter Baker is a PA in the community that runs an urgent care, who also is the lead PA for there's a marathon coming up or a 10K coming up in the fall somewhere in Tucson. And she's looking for volunteers. She may be already working with y'all. If she's not, Claire, I'd be happy to make the connect for you. But that'd be a great way where you volunteer with that organization to help cover the race. And now you've got a PA that can vouch for you because they worked with you. So I'd say if you can, the strongest thing you can do is get a letter from a PA that you're either working with or that you've done enough time with to earn a letter. I will say I had an applicant do this to me once when I was in practice. She rounded with me for half an hour and then asked if she could go home and get a letter of reference from me. And I said, the first question on the letter of reference form is, how long have I known this candidate? So if I wrote you a letter, it would say 30 minutes and they would laugh at you and at me. So I'm not going to write a letter for you. But if you want to come back and earn that letter by doing rounds with me on the weekend for, at least a full day, I would certainly consider it. And I never saw her again. So she didn't want to earn it. Whereas I remember, oh my gosh. So one of the class presidents, she was the top grade in the class. Her name was Susie Reed. There is Susie Reed. Susie's an orthopedic PA in Alaska now, but Susie was a ortho tech at the hospital. And she came up to me one day when I was rounding on a weekend and said, would you ever consider letting me shadow you once on a weekend? And I said, absolutely, Susie, it would be my honor. And she was already badged at the hospital, so it was really easy to say yes. But I always tested my applicants, because if they were going to get a letter from me, I wanted to see them earn it. So I rounded early at the hospital. So I said, meet me next Saturday. I'm on call next weekend. Meet me next Saturday at 5:45 in the morning at this spot, and we'll round together. She was waiting for me in the hallway when I got to the hospital. She rounded with me the entire day, and she asked if she could come back my next time on call. She did that for an entire year. And I wrote the best letter I've ever written for anybody. And she got into the PA school that I was a faculty member at. So I think, you don't have to do that level, but you should try to earn it with a minimum of about 20 hours. I think the average applicant has 2 shadowing opportunities with about 20 hours with them. So as you're in school, look for those opportunities through community service activities or homeless shelter clinics or street medicine opportunities or things like that, and you'll be able to work it out. Okay. All right, let's see here. What else? Will we accept online courses? Yeah, if it's from a regionally accredited university, we will absolutely accept it for sure. And I know for those of you that are all of you have experienced the pandemic version of classes like this. So the Brady Bunch screen. I think we're still trying to wrestle as a PA professional with what is the right balance for that. But what my commitment to this program is that we're going to be very flexible, because some people learn better this way, or some people would rather be in the classroom. And we'll have classroom activities that are kind of required for you to be there to show competence, like suturing, casting, splinting, bedside ultrasound, things like that, that'll be in our stimulation center. But there may be classes that I have a class called clinical reasoning that I taught at USC this last spring. It's a much better class to do on Zoom because we can break you off into breakout rooms to practice working on cases together and then have you come back in and teach back to the rest of the class. So we'll do a little bit of both on campus and off campus teaching. Okay. Yeah, I said 20 hours is a good amount of time spent with the PA. That's kind of the average that we see on CASPA applications. Let's see, I see Gabrielle said, is consistency something looks good on an application? So it's better to stick with the same PCE or do different types? I think that's a really great question, Gabrielle. I think it is probably depends on the admissions committee. Let's say you're an ophthalmology technician. That might be like something that's a little off the beaten path. So doing that plus something else that's a little bit more in the genre of EMT or CNA or medical care assistant or things like that, that might be a good option for you. Or if you're a psych tech, I think being a psych tech is a reasonable pre-health experience, but you might want to delve into something else just a little bit so that you can describe different arenas of healthcare. I definitely don't think you want to bounce a bunch of experiences and just get a little bit here and a little bit there. More importantly, Gabrielle, the consistency thing, we see applicants all the time that are just getting a checklist and basically saying, I got that, I got this, I got that. And you can pick up on that in an application as compared to an applicant who is dedicated and has a passion for a certain community. There's a different vibe to that candidate. So give you a couple examples. One of my class presidents from the class of 2013 is an emergency medicine PA at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. And Nicole, prior to going to PA school, started a nonprofit organization to help kids with disabilities obtain the medical equipment that they needed to be able to manage their day-to-day activities, either in school or at home or things like that. She raised about $10,000 a year to do, and they would basically pick one or two of the applicants each year as a board and dedicated that money to those kids. And she had a track record of doing that for years before she applied to PA school. She got in on her first try. Another grad of mine is an ortho PA in London right now. And she was the class president for the class of 2014. She started a nonprofit which brought a mobile van to long-term care facilities once a month on a Sunday and took residents out to some activity just to invest in their ideal optimal living experiences, so to speak. Now, you don't have to start a nonprofit to get into PA school, but that shows a level of dedication and commitment to a cause. And I think that would be what I'd say are your top level kind of typical applicants. Your bottom level typical applicants are people that just, you can tell they're just trying to get all those checks off so they can get into PA school without really maybe having passion about anything. So find something you're passionate about and then put in the time and effort into that one or two things. And I think that'll be sufficient. All right, let's see what else I got here. Coming out of PA school, do you have a specialty? Do you have to go to a higher level schooling to get a specialty? That's a great question. So PA training is a generalist training. The accrediting body requires that we prepare you to practice medicine. Well, USC, I can say that the data would show about 60% of our students went into a specialty of some sort right out of PA school, and about 30 to 40% went into primary care specialties like family medicine, pediatrics, women's health, gerontology, or internal medicine. So usually out of a class of 60, I'd have 1 to 3 PA graduates who would go into a postgraduate residency or postgraduate fellowship program, which for PA schools, for PA profession is about a 1-year commitment to a health system and a specialty. You work for a reduced rate of reimbursement. So typically they might make maybe $60,000 to $80,000 that year versus their colleagues who are making maybe 100 to 150, but they're getting trained by some of the best people in the country in that specialty. And when they graduate from that 1-year fellowship or residency, they can command top dollar around the country. And I tell you that a lot of those grads will do it because they're not comfortable yet. They're not ready to go into practice. And a few of them are just so interested in that specialty that they desire to gain additional expertise in that specialty before they graduate. Here in Arizona, Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale has some phenomenal 1-year postgraduate training programs. They have a hospitalist training program. They have, I'm pretty sure they still have their ortho fellowship. They have a fellowship in their HEMONC department, maybe even in transplant surgery. So there are opportunities like that. USC has a great urology fellowship. There are fellowships all around the country in surgery. So you can do all those things if you choose. You'll just make a little bit less money for that year, but it's not a bad route either. And I'll just say one last thing about that, Olivia. I think that some specialties, it's hard to get a job as a new grad. One of the classics is emergency medicine. Emergency medicine, a lot of the ER groups really don't want new grads. They want somebody who has experience. But how do you get experience? Well, those grads typically get it by going into a fellowship, or they might work in an urgent care for a year and then try to apply to ER. There are no residencies required for any specialty at this point. So there are some doctors who prefer to train you themselves. And so they'll hire you as a new grad and they'll train you the way they like you to do their specialty. Oh, these are really great questions, you guys. Thank you. What is the ideal time to have your application submitted during the CASPA cycle? Well, so there's an interesting kind of tension there, right? Because some programs do require a minimum number of clinical hours. And if you graduate, let's say you all graduate in May, and a lot of PA schools, their cycles, their application deadline is November 1st. So if you have a lot of clinical training hours and you feel like you're ready and your grades are good and all the prereqs are done, if you apply early, you're going to be considered on their early cycles. So for example, at SC, we start reading applications in July. Our first interviews are in September. We do rolling admissions. And so you've got a shot in September to get in, but we'll also look back at you. If you are placed on a wait list, we'll look back at your application every time we meet until January or February when we kind of seal the class. So early applicants have, in theory, more opportunities or better statistics to get in, better odds. But if you don't have enough hours, then sometimes you have to kind of play that game where I'm going to wait until October to apply so that I can gain like 4 or 5 months of hours to add onto my CASPA app. And then you may or may not get in, but at least you try. And then if you don't get in, the next cycle, I would apply earlier because you'll have more hours at that point. Does that make sense, Alyssa? All right, I'm going to assume yes. What else? Yes, thank you. You're welcome. Claire, let's see. I believe we had till 6:30, right?
Yeah, this club just kind of ends when it ends, so people can start trickling out if they need to.
I have a quick question real quick.
Yeah, Rebecca.
I know you said there would be some similarities to like the structure of USC and NAU, but in your own opinion, what would make this program stand out from those, or what would be different from them?
That's a really good question. You should ask that same question on interviews. That's a great one. So I think NAU is a 24-month program. We're going to be a 26-month program, and I was very purposeful about that because both are state schools, and you have a choice. You can get it done quickly, but in my experience, 24 months is like drinking from a fire hose. 26 months gives you a little bit more time to digest the curriculum. I think my best example of that is at SC, we had 3 semesters of didactic, and Midwestern we had less. It was a year of didactic. At SC, it's a year and a half. So when I taught rheumatology at SC, I had 9 hours to deliver the content that I had 3 hours to deliver at Midwestern. So, similarly, I think my guess would be that my colleagues up at NAU, who are most of them I worked with or I taught. So let me tell you, they have a great program. They're really great people, but they have less time to deliver content than we do. So that's number one. And I think time matters, and the cost will still be very competitive despite that, the fact that we're a little bit longer. Second, we're going to have medical Spanish as a requirement for the entire curriculum, which they don't. And I think I do believe that makes a big difference, because if you look at the data as to how many PAs speak Spanish in practice, it's pretty high. Of the roughly 29% of PAs who speak a second language daily, 89% of them use Spanish. And then of the other 71%, they wish they could speak Spanish. They're having to use translators on a frequent basis in many communities. So I think preparing our students to be able to communicate with the largest population that we'll see for a language difference. Now, there are plenty of other languages we could choose. Even Navajo, for example, the U of A has a great Navajo program, but Spanish is the one most commonly spoke. So that'd be number two. Number three is, I think our U of A's, you're probably experiencing this now. If you haven't, I will tell you with an unbiased, because I've U of A grads have always been phenomenal students for me, no matter where I was at. And that's because your physiology department, your basic science folks here at U of A are incredible. They're just incredible teachers. And the students who they select to come into this program are really strong. So I think you're going to continue to benefit from that here at the U of A. Truthfully, NAU uses U of A faculty for their basic science. So that's not a huge difference, but I do think we'll continue to see that success here. And U of A, from a reputation perspective, we have the medical school in the state of Arizona. NAU does not. So I think that makes a difference in terms of our rotation opportunities, our access to experts to come in and teach. So I do anticipate that we'll have a different program. I don't know if we're going to be better or not, but I don't know that it matters. It's going to be a good program. So is NAU.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. If they weren't all my former students or grads, I might say different, but I can't. They're really, really awesome. I hired many at Midwestern, and they're great teachers. Let's see, how many semesters, years of Spanish are required again? 1 year of college Spanish. So theoretically, that would be like your Spanish 101 and 102 has to be done. If you take more, you'll just be better prepared when the curriculum hits. Well, let me just say this. My email address is lohenry, so my last name, @arizona.edu. Super easy, right? Don't confuse it. My daughter's a sophomore there, so it's not Brooke Lohenry, it's just Lohenry. But you are more than welcome to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you, because you're part of the Arizona family. And I realize that we're not going to have a school that's up and running for a while, but I know a lot of the programs and a lot of their faculty and their directors from my 26 years. And I'm happy to help you in any way I can. As I get to know more of the PAs in the state again, because I've been out of the state for about 11 years, I'm certainly happy to try to help you find people that can help with shadowing as well. So don't hesitate to reach out and send me an email, and let me be a resource for you. And then once we have our program up and running, I hope you will, when you're practicing PAs in Arizona, think fondly of our program too, so that you can become teachers and preceptors too. Fair? Awesome. Claire, thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you all in success in my profession down the road.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm getting a lot of messages from people saying that they've really enjoyed your lecture today. They've learned a lot.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
That's always a bonus. Awesome. Very good. I appreciate it. I'm a little tired because I just flew back from Atlanta last night, but glad it wasn't, my energy was still here. So take care, everybody. Good luck with your school.
Thank you so much.
You.
You're
Bye,
welcome.
everyone. We will
Welcome.
see
Bye
you
now.
on October 5th at our next meeting. Awesome. Anyone have any last minute questions before we end the meeting? I'm going to assume not.